The first thing was not silence, it was light. Not the warm yellow light that slips through curtains, not the pale blue shimmer of morning, but an ocean of pure radiation, without witness, without name. 13.8 billion years ago, before darkness had a face, light flooded a universe that had no eyes. It streamed outward like a question no one could answer. We call that moment recombination. When atoms first captured electrons, the cosmos became transparent. Photons were freed, their long flight still arriving now as the faint cosmic microwave background. Every second since then has been a slow remembering of that first flash. But here is the paradox. If light is to shine, must there not be something to receive it? If no eye yet existed, did the universe see itself? The photons did not care. They moved through space indifferent to observers, painting nothing, illuminating no surface. Light, in its infancy, was an orphan phenomenon, a song played into a deaf void. And yet, everything that would later learn to see was encoded in that blindness. Imagine the newborn cosmos. No stars yet, only hydrogen fog, the temperature falling below 3000 Kelvin. For the first time, darkness became possible, a gentle veil laid upon the wild fire of the beginning. Darkness, then, is not the enemy of light, it is its first listener. In every atom of that cooling mist, the potential for shadow was forming, and with it, the possibility for contrast, for perception, for meaning. When you close your eyes tonight, and behind your eyelids shimmer faint fields of red, you are touching that same ancestry. Because what you call seeing is the slow education of darkness by light. Let us descend for a moment into the mechanism. Light is not a thing, but a vibration, an electromagnetic wave propagating through the fabric of space-time. Each photon, a quantum of energy, oscillates between electric and magnetic fields, dancing at speeds no particle can surpass. It is pure motion, pure relation. Yet it has no rest frame. To light itself, time does not flow, distance does not exist. From the photon's perspective, the journey from a distant star to your retina is instantaneous, a single, unbroken now. This means that when you look at a star, you are not simply seeing the past, you are participating in a present that for light has never ended. Light is memory, but also immediacy. It connects moments that think they are separated. Here the scientific and the poetic blur. Because in physics, light defines the visible universe, that tiny fraction of reality we can perceive. But in consciousness, light defines awareness itself. Every thought, every image in your mind is the translation of electrical impulses, tiny signals moving, flashing, reflecting the same logic photons follow. So perhaps it is not that we see light, but that we are what light does when it learns to observe itself. Consider the eye, a small sphere of tissue developed from the skin of a creature that once hid in the dark. The earliest vision began not as sight, but as the detection of danger. Cells that could sense brightness survived heat, avoided predators, moved toward food. From this simple gradient, light or dark, came the architecture of intelligence. Rods and cones, optic nerves and occipital lobes, all descendants of fear and curiosity. To perceive light was to know the difference between safety and peril. So we might say, consciousness began as a response to illumination. Every day you repeat the origin of the cosmos. You wake, light enters the room, your pupils contract, the world appears. But before that instant, there was only the soft darkness of sleep, a microcosmic echo of the universe before eyes. Light exists first, darkness follows to understand it. The paradox deepens If the universe began in brightness and only later invented eyes to behold it, then perhaps seeing is not the cause of meaning, but its consequence. Maybe existence itself required an observer not to create it, but to complete it. Just as a melody waits for a listener to become music. Light alone is potential. Darkness gives it contour. Vision makes it real. In this way, every act of perception is a reunion, a photon born billions of years ago, meeting the evolved surface that can finally notice it. You, sitting here, are a continuation of the Big Bang's unfinished sentence. And your eyes are punctuation marks of that first light. So the question returns, softly but sharper now. Why does light exist before darkness learned to see? Perhaps because seeing is the way darkness remembers being light. You flick a switch and the world answers. A current hums, a filament glows, and suddenly the room remembers its shape. Light floods corners that had forgotten colour. Every object steps forward, each one saying quietly, "I exist again." In that brief gesture, you recreate the oldest moment in the universe, the instant when darkness became transparent. Once, there were no rooms, no eyes, no surfaces for light to strike, only a seething plasma, and inside it, energy desperate to move. When the first atoms formed, space opened its lungs. Photons exhaled into freedom, each one a messenger of temperature, distance, and time. They carried no mass, no home, no memory, except the command to go. Even now they do not stop. The photons that left a star before the first dinosaurs might reach your pupil tonight. They do not age. From their point of view, they are born and arrive in the same instant. To be light is to live outside duration. Imagine that. Existence with no waiting, no becoming, only being. And yet, we measure life by the movement of light. Seconds, years, centuries, all defined by how far brightness travels before we name it. Perhaps time itself is the shadow light casts when it slows down enough to be noticed. If light defines time, then seeing is a kind of participation in eternity. Stand outside at dawn. The first rays bend through the atmosphere, split into colours by the thickness of air. They touch your skin before your mind even wakes. Inside each wave is a vibration, electric and magnetic, crossing each other at right angles, propelling themselves forward at a constant speed. 199,792 kilometers per second. There is no faster way to send a greeting across existence. Every colour you know is only a different frequency of that vibration. Red moves slowly, blue faster, violet faster still. Outside the visible spectrum stretches a vast invisible empire. Radio waves long as mountains, gamma rays short as atomic cores. Our eyes catch only a narrow sliver, the human octave in the symphony of radiation. The rest sings around us, unheard, unfelt, passing through walls, skin, bone. We live in a quiet ocean of invisible light. If we could see beyond our limits, the sky would explode in colour. Wi-Fi signals would shimmer through the air like silk. Cell towers would glow with infrared veins. Every living body would be haloed in warmth. The night would never be dark again. But nature chose restraint. Evolution closed most of the spectrum to our perception, perhaps so we could stay sane. Vision is not truth. It is mercy. Our eyes filter reality to a manageable size. Too much information and the mind dissolves. So every act of seeing is a collaboration between physics and forgiveness. The universe offers everything. We accept only what we can survive. Think of light as language. Every atom emits a dialect. Hydrogen speaks in crimson, sodium in yellow, oxygen in green. A spectrum is a sentence written in frequency. Astronomers read it the way monks once read scripture. By decoding starlight, we learn composition, distance, motion, all without leaving home. Light carries gossip across billions of years. It tells us who a star was, how hot it burned when it died. To study light is to eavesdrop on the cosmos. And in that act, we become part of its conversation. But what is light, truly? A wave? A particle? A duality that refuses to choose. It interferes with itself, bends around corners, arrives in probabilities rather than certainties. Each photon seems aware of every possible path, yet commits to one only when observed. This is not metaphor, it is experiment. In the double-slit test, a single photon behaves like a wave of many until the moment someone looks, and then it collapses into one outcome. Observation changes reality. Perhaps that is what the universe needed from us. Eyes not to witness, but to decide. So the switch you press each morning is not just a circuit completing. It is a ritual of cosmic repetition, a reenactment of the first awakening. When the room brightens, space itself performs its oldest story again. Illumination is both fact and memory. Every bulb is a miniature Big Bang. And you, standing there, are its witness and its reason. Light shows everything except itself. The more it reveals, the more invisible it becomes. You stand before a mirror. The surface gleams, silver and patient. You lift your eyes and meet a stranger who moves exactly as you do. A fraction of a second earlier, light bounced from your skin, crossed the small gap, hit the mirror, and returned through the air to your retina. What you call now is already a memory made of photons. Every reflection is history measured in nanoseconds. Behind your eyes, a silent translation begins. Photons strike molecules of retinal, changing their shape, triggering a cascade of ions that ignite the optic nerve. A storm of signals travels backward toward the brain, where electric currents carve patterns in darkness. Out of that electric storm, form appears, colour blossoms, depth solidifies, motion becomes real. You never see the world directly. You see its reconstruction, built by your nervous system from data and prediction. Your eyes are not windows, they are architects. Imagine the retina as a living mosaic. 100 million rods, 7 million cones. Each one tuned to a narrow slice of light. Rods gather brightness in the dim, whispering grayscale truths. Cones sing in colour, red, green, blue, combining their voices to compose the spectrum of experience. They do not work alone. They speak to bipolar cells, to ganglion cells, to fibres braided into the optic nerve. That cable, thin as a finger, is a river of information flowing into the brain's visual cortex at the back of the skull. There, in folds of grey matter, the image is not projected but computed. Each neuron listens to others, assembling edges, contrasts, motion. Layer by layer, meaning emerges. If the mind were transparent, you could watch it paint the world in real time. Millions of neurons firing, each one a pixel of awareness. But the painting is never finished. The brain fills gaps, smooths edges, and invents continuity when none exists. Look at the world long enough, and you will notice that vision lies constantly, not to deceive, but to protect. Your blind spot is a hole in the retina where no cells exist, yet you never see it because your mind patches the void with imagination. Seeing, therefore, is an act of constant forgiveness. The brain forgives the eye for its flaws and invents beauty from missing data. Think of this process like an orchestra. Each sense plays an instrument, but vision holds the melody. Photons are the notes, neurons the strings. The conductor is memory, deciding which notes matter enough to stay. Every glance is a rehearsal of the same cosmic rhythm, energy converted to pattern, pattern to meaning, meaning to awareness. Light becomes thought. Thought becomes light again when you open your mouth and describe what you see. Language is reflected radiance. Consider how fragile it is. A flash too bright burns receptors. A night too long dulls them. Evolution tuned this balance so that perception would neither blind nor starve itself. In deep ocean trenches, some fish see through organs of phosphorescent bacteria. In the desert, hawks perceive ultraviolet trails invisible to humans. Each creature interprets reality through its own spectrum. No two forms of life inhabit the same visible world. The universe therefore does not appear one way, it appears in as many ways as there are eyes to see it. Reality is plural, braided by perception. Scientists once believed vision was passive, that eyes captured the world like a camera. Now they know it is active, a feedback loop of expectation and signal. You predict what you will see before you see it. Your brain sends instructions downward to the eye, priming it for patterns it expects. When the incoming light matches the forecast, you experience recognition, a brief alignment of inside and outside. But when the signal differs, the mind hesitates, reconfigures, and in that hesitation, wonder is born. Curiosity is the moment when prediction fails gracefully. Think of a child discovering a rainbow for the first time. She doesn't see light bending through droplets, she sees miracle. Yet both are true. Physics explains it, but poetry names the feeling of not yet understanding. Seeing in its purest form is the collaboration between truth and astonishment. The mirror waits again. You stare longer this time. You realize the image does not contain you, it contains light borrowed from you. You are the source and the reflection, the subject and the projection. In that small loop of photons bouncing and returning, the universe performs self-recognition. It takes 13.8 billion years for matter to look itself in the eye. You do not see the world, you see the light that the world once borrowed from you. Close your eyes. Darkness arrives without effort. It folds around you like water, quiet, intimate and alive. At first it feels empty, but if you linger long enough, you will notice that darkness is never silent. It hums softly beneath thought, a gentle vibration of unseen life. Inside the mind, the last traces of light still shimmer. Tiny electric flickers dance behind your eyelids. These are phosphenes, echoes of the day that refuse to die. Even when no photon touches you, the brain continues to see. It generates its own luminous ghosts. Darkness is not the absence of light. It is the background that allows light to mean anything at all. In the earliest oceans, there were creatures that could not yet see, only sense the rhythm of brightness and shade. They did not look at the sun, they listened to its pattern. Cells that felt warmth survived. Those that ignored it vanished. From this quiet selection, the architecture of vision began. Darkness trained life to notice difference, and from difference came perception. Without the long night of blindness, no creature would have learned to hunger for light. Darkness, therefore, is the first teacher. Light only graduates its lessons. In the human eye, darkness is not nothing. It triggers a chemical reset. Rhodopsin regenerates, preparing the rods to sense again. In shadow, your vision sharpens. Pupils widen. Neurons recalibrate their sensitivity. You are built to find shape in the unlit. Your brain becomes more creative when the world disappears. That is why ideas are born at midnight, why dreams speak in images that daylight would censor. Darkness unburdens the mind from surface truth and invites it to imagine. Light informs. darkness invents. Think of a theatre before the curtain rises. The audience waits, breathing together in that suspended blackness. It is a womb of expectation. Without it, the first line of the play would have no weight. Every revelation requires a moment of blindness. Every discovery begins with an absence. The universe itself followed this rhythm. After the Big Bang, there came the cosmic dark ages. For millions of years, no stars burned. Hydrogen filled space like fog, and light could not travel far. Then, slowly, gravity gathered the gas. Fusion ignited. The first stars broke open the silence. Creation is not constant brightness. It is the alternation between concealment and release. If you think of knowledge as light, then ignorance is not its opposite, but its ground. To know something is to draw a boundary in the unknown. The larger the field of knowing grows, the wider its edge of mystery expands. Darkness keeps knowledge honest. It reminds us that clarity is rare, and that every answer throws a longer shadow. Look at the night sky. You see countless stars, yet they make up only a small fraction of what exists. The rest, dark matter, dark energy, is invisible, inferred by gravity and motion. 95% of the cosmos is unseen. The universe hides itself by majority vote. What we call reality is a candle flickering in an immeasurable cave. And still, we are drawn to it. We stare upward, letting the darkness surround us, and feel a strange comfort in being small. Darkness has another intelligence. It slows the mind. It softens the edges between things. It teaches patience. When you cannot see, you begin to listen. You notice breathing, heartbeat, the rhythm of your own presence. In that hush, perception widens inward. Awareness folds back on itself and recognizes its own luminosity. Some mystics call this the inner light. But perhaps it is simply darkness becoming self-aware. When the outer world vanishes, the inner one awakens. Your mind glows faintly with its own energy, a living lantern in the skull. You are not surrounded by darkness. You are generating it from within, a necessary contrast against which thought can appear. Darkness is not a failure of sight. It is sight without object. It is attention resting in itself. To see nothing clearly is to glimpse the foundation of seeing. Imagine a painter washing a canvas in black before the first stroke of colour. That silence of hue is the promise of all images. Likewise, the darkness behind your eyes is the promise of every moment you will ever witness. Without it, perception could not reset, memory could not form, light could not astonish. Every dawn depends on the generosity of night. You open your eyes again. The room returns, edges reappear, but something subtle has changed. You no longer treat darkness as an enemy. You sense its quiet wisdom lingering in the corners. It waits, patient as gravity, for light to tire again. And it knows that when brightness fades, awareness does not die. It simply turns inward to dream. Light reveals the world, but darkness reveals the mind that sees it. Morning spreads like breath over a forest. Mist lifts from the branches. Leaves glitter as if remembering how to be green. Birds open their eyes one by one. Light and life negotiate their ancient truce. The sun does not command them, it invites them. Each cell accepts the invitation differently. A fern stretches. A bee navigates by ultraviolet maps invisible to us. An owl, hiding in its hollow, trusts the darkness a little longer. Life is a choreography of brightness and shadow. Every organism translates the same radiation into its own meaning. In the leaf, photons break bonds, stitching carbon from air into sugar. In the retina, they whisper to neurons. In the brain, they become memory. The world feeds on light, not only to live, but to understand that it is living. When sunlight touches chlorophyll, electrons leap between molecules. A cascade of reactions follows, transforming radiance into matter, matter into growth, growth into possibility. This is not poetry. It is metabolism. It is the language of photons spoken through chemistry. Every breath you take is a repetition of this covenant. You inhale what plants made from light. You exhale what stars once burned into existence. To see, to eat, to think, all are versions of the same conversion. Energy becomes awareness through the patient labour of forms. Imagine the biosphere as a single lens. Every leaf, every eye, every drop of ocean bends light in its own way, refracting the universe back to itself. Some of that light feeds bodies, some feeds consciousness. All of it participates in the same unfolding experiment. How to turn energy into meaning. The planet is a vast mirror, not of glass but of living matter, reflecting the sun until reflection learns to ask why. Even night is part of that balance. While daylight writes, darkness edits. Roots drink what leaves gathered, dreams digest what waking collected. The rhythm of life depends on this alternation. Without the pause of shadow, the pulse of light would lose its direction. When evening comes, the forest does not die. It exhales. Photosynthesis stops, but the memory of light lingers in sugar and sap. Stored sunlight waits in trunks and seeds, a quiet library of energy ready for morning. Human beings are the same. You carry light as potential, stored in your blood, circulating through thought. Your nervous system pulses with electricity. Each heartbeat is a signal, each neuron a spark. The body is not illuminated from outside, it glows from within. Perhaps that is why eyes shine even in dimness, why pupils reflect the room around them as though holding a small universe. To look into another's eyes is to glimpse the echo of solar fire filtered through emotion. Light has found a way to feel itself. In this ecology of perception, there is no hierarchy, only exchange. The sun gives, the earth receives. Life returns the gesture through motion, sound, and thought. Awareness is reciprocity. When a moth circles a lamp, when a child draws a sun in yellow crayon, when you lift your face toward dawn, each act says the same thing. I recognize the source of my becoming. The human mind is the newest layer of that ecosystem. It does not exist apart from it. Your thoughts are extensions of photosynthesis, refined through billions of years of trial. To think clearly is to participate in the discipline of light. Yet, clarity alone is not enough. Understanding without wonder is brightness without warmth. So perception must breathe. Inward toward comprehension, outward toward awe. Balance keeps the pattern alive. In silence you feel the heartbeat of this exchange. Air moves through leaves and lungs together. Somewhere, deep under soil, roots pulse in rhythm with your veins. Light has become flesh. Flesh has become witness. Witness becomes gratitude. You close your eyes once more. Behind the darkness you sense the same radiance waiting, not to blind, but to belong. The day continues, each photon still on its endless journey, each living being a brief pause in its flight. And perhaps that is what seeing truly means, to let light rest in you for a moment before releasing it back to the world. Light travels outward forever, yet every act of perception turns it home again. You think light is the beginning, but what if it is the consequence? What if seeing comes first and the universe only shines because perception demands it? Every law of physics says light existed long before eyes. but every act of knowing says the opposite. Without a witness, can brightness mean anything? Does an unobserved photon still count as light? Question sounds like philosophy, yet science stumbles on it every time it looks too closely. In the double-slit experiment, light behaves as a wave until we decide to measure it. When we look, it changes, as if the act of attention collapses the universe into a single path. Observation sculpts existence. Vision is not a receiver, it is a creator. You stare into this paradox and feel gravity tug at your reason. If reality requires awareness to crystallize, then awareness is older than the world it perceives. In the beginning, there may not have been matter at all, only potential waiting for recognition. Perhaps the universe began, not with a bang, but with a question. What can see me? And from that question, light unfolded. Photons rushing outward, not searching for objects to illuminate, but for eyes yet unborn, that might one day remember them. Every beam travelling through space is a promise, sent billions of years in advance, waiting for someone, somewhere, to awaken and say, I see. The mathematics is precise, but the meaning trembles beneath it. Light has no rest frame. For a photon, time does not pass. Distance does not exist. From its perspective, the moment it leaves a star and the moment it enters your eye are one and the same. The journey never happened. The path is instantaneous. Light does not travel, it connects. So when you gaze at a star, you're not looking across space. You are touching the same eternal now in which that star still burns. To light, the universe is already complete. It is we who move slowly through its frozen brilliance, translating eternity into seconds. Perhaps that is what consciousness is, the sensation of time passing through the stillness of light. But even this stillness hides another question. If light is timeless, why does it fade? Why do stars die? Lamps burn out, eyes close. Because perception is not content with perfection. It hungers for contrast. It needs the rhythm between knowing and not knowing, brightness and shadow, presence and loss. Without darkness, light would have no story. Without forgetfulness, memory would not move. So light falls into matter. It slows, bends, scatters, trades eternity for experience. That is what makes colour possible. Colour is the scar left by light learning to stop. You walk outside at dusk. The air glows faintly blue. Shadows stretch, soft at the edges. Everything seems half-remembered. In that in-between world, your eyes adjust, your pupils widen, your brain recalibrates what it calls real. Some part of you senses that seeing is not passive. You are not watching the world. You are completing it. Light needs your mind the way sound needs air, to become something more than motion. Maybe the universe is not a collection of things, but a continuous conversation between awareness and energy. Each glance is a reply, each thought a reflection. And here comes the quiet paradox. The more we try to define light, the more it dissolves into shadow. Every discovery brightens one corner of the room while deepening the rest. Knowledge and mystery grow together. To illuminate completely is to erase the texture that made beauty possible. That is why the universe never reveals itself all at once. It prefers suggestion to certainty, glimmer to glare. Light exists because darkness desires to understand, and we exist because that desire found eyes to inhabit. You think light is the beginning, but perhaps it is the echo of seeing itself. The mind keeps wondering what it means to look. If light appears only when seen, then who is the first witness? And if the witness is made of the same particles it observes, how can looking ever be separate from being? Inside the brain, billions of neurons flash like constellations. Each spark is an echo of cosmic fire. Electric fields weave through tissue, tiny lightning storms repeating the pattern of stars. Perhaps the universe has never stopped burning, it simply folded its flame into smaller and smaller forms, until it became thought. When you imagine, you are conducting a fragment of the Big Bang in private. Your skull becomes a miniature cosmos, your memories the galaxies it continues to create. You breathe, and with each breath you reorganize the dust of supernovas into awareness. The carbon in your blood once shone in a red giant. The calcium in your bones was forged in stellar collapse. To know this is to realize that perception is ancestry. You are not looking at the universe, you are its latest way of looking at itself. The mirror test in animals tries to ask this question simply. Does the creature know the reflection is its own? Great apes, dolphins, magpies, elephants, they pass. They touch their faces, tilt their heads, recognize familiarity. But even a single-celled organism turns toward light. It cannot name itself, yet it moves as though the sun were calling it by name. Awareness begins not with language, but with orientation. To face the source is already to say, I am. Every motion toward brightness is an act of identity forming. Plants lean, eyes open, minds awaken. The gesture is universal. Scientists map neural pathways and call it cognition. Mystics close their eyes and call it revelation. Both are studying the same event from opposite directions, energy becoming aware of energy. If consciousness emerges from matter, then matter has been preparing for this for billions of years. Atoms joined into molecules, molecules into cells, cells into nervous systems capable of folding perception back upon itself. The loop completes. The observer and the observed are the same structure, meeting from different sides of the mirror. When a photon touches the retina and the neuron fires in reply, the universe whispers, I see you, and through your eyes it answers, I see you too. To think is to bend space inside your head. Ideas collide like particles producing sparks of meaning. A question forms and with it a miniature gravity well, a tension pulling experience toward its center. Every mind is its own field of relativity. Emotions warp time. A minute of joy feels brief, a minute of pain infinite. The same dilation Einstein found in stars lives quietly in the heart. When you remember someone you love, their absence travels faster than light. It arrives before the thought itself. Maybe memory is the way consciousness experiments with faster-than-light connection. It ignores distance, bends causality, creates presence from recall. In that sense, the soul is not mystical. It is physics refusing to forget. The paradox ripens. If perception completes reality, then loneliness is impossible. Nothing exists unobserved. Every atom is held in place by attention. Every silence kept company by awareness. Yet the feeling of being alone persists. Perhaps that too is part of the design. Separation allows recognition. Without the illusion of distance, connection would have no meaning. You look at your own hands in lamplight. They are both instrument and evidence. The universe noticing its shape and deciding, for a brief moment, to reach back toward itself. Light meets light. Being meets seeing. And in that meeting, the cosmos remembers its own name. Close your eyes for a long moment. Inside that silence, vision does not end. It folds inward. Shapes made of memory begin to glow. A faint light rises from behind thought itself. You realize darkness is not the absence of seeing. It is the seeing that has turned around to face its own source. For centuries we have spoken as if light were the teacher and shadow the student. But look closer. Every brightness learns its edge from the dark that surrounds it. Without contrast, illumination loses meaning. Without night, the sun would be invisible. The paradox deepens. Darkness is not defeated by light, it gives birth to it. At the heart of every star lies gravity, and gravity is pure collapse. matter falling into itself until it ignites. Compression creates radiance. The more the universe caves inward, the more brilliantly it burns. Every photon you have ever seen was born from pressure and loss. Light is grief made visible. And yet that grief moves at the fastest speed known. Sorrow becomes motion. Motion becomes beauty. The cosmos heals itself by shining. In a black hole, gravity wins completely. Nothing escapes, not even light. We once thought this was the end of information, the final darkness. But theory changed again. Stephen Hawking showed that even the perfect dark glows faintly at its edges. Quantum tremors pull pairs of particles apart, one falling inward, one escaping. Darkness radiates. The boundary between hole and horizon hums with hidden energy, as if the universe cannot bear to be silent anywhere. So the deepest night contains its own ember, and the brightest fire hides a gravity that will one day pull it back into shadow. Everything that shines is already falling. Everything that falls leaves a trace of light. Creation and collapse are one continuous gesture. You look up at the sky again and understand that space itself is not empty. It seethes with virtual particles flickering in and out of existence, tiny eruptions of yes and no. Even vacuum is alive with hesitation. The fabric of reality breathes. Darkness inhales potential. Light exhales form. Between those breaths, we exist. Maybe consciousness is that rhythm scaled into thought, awareness expanding, contracting, forgetting and remembering in cosmic proportion. Each heartbeat echoes the pulse of creation. Systole, the world appears. Diastole, it returns to stillness. The self is just a small oscillation inside that greater wave. You think of the eye again, the small sphere of wet matter turning photons into mind. Inside it, rods and cones translate frequency into experience. But inside the brain, those signals become emotion. Brightness becomes joy. Shadow becomes calm. Colour becomes memory. Perhaps perception is not the act of taking in light, but of redistributing it across meaning. You do not consume illumination. You remix it into awareness. Every thought, every dream is an emission, a faint glow from the furnace of consciousness. If one could look at the planet from far enough away, perhaps it would shimmer faintly, billions of human minds flickering like bioluminescent plankton in an ocean of night. The Milky Way as seen from the outside might not be a spiral of stars at all, but a collective vision trying to remember itself. When light and darkness meet perfectly, they erase each other. At that moment, nothing can be seen, but everything can be known. The mystics call it union, the physicists call it symmetry, the poets call it peace. Beyond that balance, there is neither subject nor object, only awareness aware of awareness. The I and the universe collapse into one continuous sensation of being. Perhaps this is what the photon feels as it leaves a star and arrives in your eye at the same instant. No distance, no delay, just recognition. You are that recognition made slow enough to understand itself. Light begins as darkness remembering. Darkness endures as light forgetting. Each depends on the other to exist. You cannot separate them, just as you cannot separate perception from reality. They are two sides of one motion, the universe blinking, softly, eternally. The storm of thought quiets. You breathe, and the boundary between brightness and shadow softens. Everything you have seen, everything you have questioned, now feels like a single movement, light reaching outward, darkness drawing it home. There is no battle, only rhythm. The morning sun and the midnight sky are the same gesture, painted on opposite sides of time. They trade places endlessly, one revealing, one restoring, Each gives the other meaning. You begin to sense that peace is not the absence of contrast, but the understanding of its necessity. Without separation, there is no return. Without return, there is no story. The universe breathes, and you are that breath. You sit by a window as evening folds the day. Light spills across the floor, then slowly withdraws, leaving the outlines of things behind like quiet memories. You watch the colours fade and notice how the room becomes more intimate as it darkens. In shadow, the unnecessary disappears. Only shape remains, pure and simple. You realise that clarity was never about more light, but about less distraction. Darkness refines. The first stars appear. They seem small, but their patience is infinite. They shine not to dominate the void, but to converse with it. In their silence, you hear the oldest dialogue, the exchange between being and awareness. Perhaps this is what existence has always wanted. Not victory, not permanence, but the quiet companionship of knowing itself. The world outside your window slows. Wind moves through trees. A dog barks in the distance. The hum of the city sinks beneath the rhythm of your pulse. You can almost feel the planet turning beneath you, a steady rotation through the current of sunlight and shadow. Half the earth is always day, half always night, and the line between them travels endlessly across oceans and deserts. That moving line, the terminator, is the heartbeat of the world. Every creature lives somewhere along its passage. Every life is a brief interval in its endless rotation. It reminds you that balance is not stillness. It is motion in harmony. To live is to move between illumination and rest, between knowing and mystery, between the joy of seeing and the peace of closing the eyes. In your own mind, the same frontier drifts. Thought rises, shines, fades. Memory flickers like dusk. Sleep gathers its soft gravity. The cells in your eyes release their tension. Neurons settle into slower waves. The inner light that once surged outward now glows quietly within. Consciousness does not end. It reclines. It turns its gaze inward, where the dark is gentle and the bright is kind. Dreams begin to form. The secret continuation of day. Light reborn as image. Darkness reborn as meaning. In this twilight, the two are no longer opposites. They have learned to speak each other's language. Perhaps this is what evolution has been aiming for all along. Not perfection, but balance. The ability to hold paradox without breaking, to see clearly and still wonder, to know deeply and still love mystery. When you can do that, the cosmos no longer feels distant. It feels familiar, as if it has always lived in your chest, beating quietly, rhythm after rhythm, waiting to be noticed. Every photon, every shadow, every thought of meaning moves through the same circuit of return. The light that left a star 1 billion years ago now rests in your heart for a fraction of a second before continuing its journey back into the dark. It will leave warmth, or an idea, or a single pulse of gratitude. Then it will move on, carrying the echo of your awareness with it. You whisper something, though no one is there to hear. Maybe the words are prayer, maybe they are physics, maybe there is no difference anymore. In the language of matter, you are made of the same vibration as everything that shines. In the language of meaning, you are what the universe says when it remembers that it can feel. Light and darkness pause together, as if listening. Then both exhale. The night deepens. Somewhere, another dawn begins. You wake before dawn. The room is dim, the air still. For a moment the world is neither night nor day, a slow heartbeat between the two. You breathe, and light begins to gather. It slides along the edge of the window, soft, unhurried, finding its way across the floor. In that silence, you remember that seeing is not just an act of the eyes. It is the soul taking inventory of existence. You lift your hand into the faint glow. It is your hand, and yet it feels like something larger is looking through you. The light is not outside anymore. It is participation. Every morning repeats the first awakening of the cosmos. Darkness makes space for illumination, and illumination gives darkness a reason to return. You are part of that rhythm, a small pulse inside a vast organism called awareness. Outside, the city stretches awake. Windows ignite one by one, mirroring the stars that have not yet faded. People walk, phones glow, coffee steams in the chill of early air. Each face carries its own sunrise. Each glance reflects a tiny fragment of the same radiance. It is easy to believe light belongs to the sky, but it belongs equally to the mind. Every act of attention is a sunrise inside the skull. When you look at another person, you become a bridge of photons. The same particles that warmed your skin bounce into their eyes. In that instant, the boundary between two selves dissolves. We live thinking we are separate, but we are stitched together by light. It travels through us, not around us. The universe has been conducting this exchange since the first atom learned to glow. To see another is to continue that conversation. Light and emotion share the same language. Both move in waves, both fade, return, and leave resonance where they have been. Neuroscientists can measure it. Joy brightens the visual cortex. Sadness softens it. When someone smiles, your own neurons imitate the pattern, turning empathy into illumination. Every kindness is a form of brightness. Every forgiveness is a dawn. The biology of compassion is a mirror of cosmic law. Energy seeks balance, and awareness seeks understanding. Even grief, that deep shadow, is not separate from the field of light. It is where illumination bends inward to repair itself. You feel that curve when memory tightens in the chest, when absence glows faintly with the shape of what is missing. Darkness and tenderness are twins. Both are ways the world teaches softness. You walk outside again. The sun has fully risen. Colours sharpen. Air becomes transparent. Yet the most vivid thing is not what you see, it is the feeling of being seen. The day looks back. The trees shimmer as if they recognize you. The street hums with quiet recognition. Perhaps this is the secret all along. The universe does not just emit light. It reflects attention. For every glance you cast outward, there is something looking inward through it. You are both lens and landscape. And suddenly, the human story feels less lonely. The same physics that guides galaxies moves behind your heartbeat. The same force that bends light around stars bends thought toward meaning. You are never outside the equation. You are its continuation. Evening will come and you will return to the same room, the same window, but the light will fall differently. It will no longer be proof of distance, but memory of connection. You will understand then that seeing was never about confirming existence. It was about belonging to it. And as night settles again, you will close your eyes and realize that the darkness inside you is made of the same material as the sky. Both are waiting to shine again. Memory is another kind of light. It does not travel through space, but through time. It glows behind your eyes when the world has already passed. Close them for a moment. You will see faces that are no longer here. You will hear voices you thought you had forgotten. They flicker softly in the dark of the mind. Tiny lanterns made of remembering. Each memory is a photon that has turned inward. It no longer moves outward into the world, but circulates within, illuminating what it once touched. You live surrounded by this internal radiance. It is fragile, easily scattered by noise, yet it defines who you are. What you call identity is a constellation of remembered light, a shifting map that the heart keeps redrawing every time it learns something new about loss. Science tells us memory is electrical. Traces of experience etched into patterns of synaptic strength. The brain records not what happened, but how it felt. Every recollection is a reconstruction, a new painting over an old canvas. But what does that mean for truth? If every act of remembering changes the memory itself, then the past is alive. It evolves each time you return to it. That should terrify you, but it doesn't, because deep down, you know that growth requires revision. Light cannot remain still. It flickers, adapts, redefines. So you learn to accept that memory is not a photograph. It is a living exposure, a chemical still developing under invisible rays. You sit at your desk at night. A single lamp burns beside you. Its circle of light feels safe. Everything outside it fades into velvet silence. In that small enclosure you feel the echo of the universe. Darkness pressed close, light gathering in the center, you breathing between them. The lamp is not just illumination, it is focus. It says, this moment matters. You think of all the people you have been. Child, student, lover, stranger. Each left behind a trail of light like an orbit. They all still exist, not as ghosts but as patterns of reflection within you. When you remember them, you are not going backward. You are summoning the many directions light can take before fading. Time itself might be a function of perception. Without witnesses, events do not line up into a line. They exist as a cloud of possibilities. The mind connects them, creates cause and consequence, builds a story out of simultaneity. Perhaps the reason we age is that our awareness can only move in one direction through that cloud. We surf the wave of increasing entropy, gathering fragments of radiance as we go. Each second burns a little brighter than the one before, until the body can no longer hold the heat. Then consciousness diffuses, joining the ambient light of the world. Death then may not be extinction, but dispersal, illumination released back into general circulation. The photons that warmed your skin in life will continue their journey. The thoughts that once sparked in your mind will echo as patterns in others. Energy does not end. It only changes address. When grief arrives, it often wears the face of darkness. But look closer. Even sorrow shines at its edges. It sharpens awareness. It teaches the heart to see detail in shadow. Every tear refracts a little light. Every silence contains a hum. The ones you love do not vanish. They become less visible. They slip beneath the threshold of vision, but not beyond reach. At night, when memory glows softly behind your ribs, you understand that love is the longest wavelength of light. It travels through everything. It never runs out of distance. You step outside again. The air is cool, the stars clear. You feel small, but also infinite in the act of noticing. To remember is to rejoin the conversation between time and light. You answer it simply by being here, by feeling, by holding what was once visible inside the darkness of your chest. Everything you have seen, everyone you have known, still travels within you at the speed of compassion. You are a continuation of their brightness, and someday someone will look at you, and the chain will extend again. Light, memory, and love. All three obey the same law. They cannot be destroyed, only transformed. Fear is also a form of light. It burns fast, uneven, flaring against the walls of the mind. It shows you what you have not yet understood. Every shadow that frightens you is cast by something luminous behind it. The unknown only glows when you turn toward it. You stand at the edge of a quiet street at night. The lamplight fades before reaching the trees. Beyond it, The dark hums with suggestion. Your body tenses, eyes widening to catch what the light cannot reach. In that small moment, you are both animal and astronomer, prehistoric and modern. Your pupils dilate not only to survive, but to learn. Fear becomes curiosity wearing armor. The nervous system evolved in light's absence. Every reflex, every instinct was shaped by what we could not see. Darkness trained perception, taught us to listen beyond vision, to imagine danger before it arrived. That imagination never left. It became art, religion, science. The same capacity that once scanned the jungle for predators now scans the cosmos for truth. Loneliness feels darker than any room. But even loneliness glows faintly when examined. Neuroscientists find that isolation heightens sensitivity. The brain begins to notice subtle cues, the sound of the fridge, the pulse in your wrist, the quiet persistence of breathing. When no other voices fill the space, you hear your own more clearly. And in that clarity, something unexpected appears. Compassion. To be alone is to feel the need for connection without its immediate relief. That tension creates empathy. It allows you to imagine the solitude of others. Perhaps this is why stars shine alone, each separated by impossible distances, yet together they form patterns, guiding travelers across centuries. They are companionship by example. Human beings do the same. We burn quietly beside one another, transmitting warmth through distance, calling it kindness. Compassion has measurable physics. A smile changes another person's pulse. Touch synchronizes heartbeats. Emotions spread through mirror neurons like signals passing through a shared field. We call it empathy, but it is also resonance. The body is an antenna for feeling. The mind is a translator of frequency. When someone suffers and you care, you are converting pain into information into light. The photons that once struck your eyes when you saw that person's face are now encoded as memory. When you act with kindness, those stored photons are released again, not as beams, but as gestures, words, presence. Light becomes behavior. The cosmos keeps teaching the same lesson through biology and physics alike. Energy is never wasted. What you give returns, transformed, but intact. Still, there are nights when none of this seems enough. When the world feels too vast, the heart too small. When you wonder if awareness itself is just a spark destined to vanish. But remember the scale of things. Even the faintest star continues to shine for millions of years after its death. Its light travels on, telling its story long after the source has gone silent. Your thoughts, your kindness, your mistakes, all radiate outward in the same way. They leave your body as traces of influence, tiny ripples of energy moving through other minds. You will not see where they end. You are not meant to. To exist is to send light you will never witness again. And perhaps meaning is nothing more than trusting that this unseen brightness continues. The mind quiets again. You close your eyes and feel the pulse behind them. It is steady, rhythmic, a reminder that light and darkness share the same heartbeat. Every joy you've known, every sorrow, was a temporary shape of that pulse. You have been expanding and contracting with the universe all along. Compassion is not separate from physics. It is entropy reversed for a moment, the chaos of existence organizing itself into care. When you comfort someone, you are reducing disorder in both hearts. For an instant, the arrow of time bends toward coherence. This is what it means to be human. Not to own light, but to become its brief sanctuary. You sit quietly, no longer asking for answers. The room darkens around you, but the air feels full of presence. Outside, a single street lamp hums. Its glow stretches across pavement slick with rain. Each droplet catches a fragment of brightness, then releases it back to the night. You see yourself in that exchange, a temporary vessel of radiance, letting it pass through without resistance. And in that acceptance, peace arrives. Dawn again. You wake to the sound of quiet rain against glass. The light is pale, patient, filtered through clouds that seem to breathe with you. Each drop carries the whole sky inside it. Each shimmer reminds you that brightness does not need to shout. It can whisper and still reach everything. You step outside. The air smells of earth and renewal. Every leaf holds a small reflection, tiny worlds bending in silence. You realize that illumination was never about power. It was about presence. Light does not conquer darkness. It listens to it, fills its shape gently, then leaves without a trace. Perhaps this is what maturity feels like. To shine without burning. To see without claiming. In the heart's laboratory, awareness has been refining itself for years. Fear melted into understanding. Loneliness softened into connection. Knowledge grew roots and became humility. Now, standing here in the soft grey morning, you understand that all opposites are temporary. Light and dark, joy and sorrow, clarity and confusion, they are movements of one field, not enemies, not separate. The mind divides so that meaning can appear. The soul unites so that meaning can rest. When you look back at the path behind you, you see how every moment of shadow prepared your eyes for gentler light. Nothing was wasted. Even loss had its brightness, even silence had its tone. The world was always teaching the same lesson, that perception and existence are one act, that the universe sees itself through your capacity to care. The day opens slowly. People pass you on the street, each carrying a private constellation of worries and dreams. You wonder how much unspoken light travels between them, through glances, gestures, the simple courtesy of sharing space. If every act of kindness releases a photon, then the planet glows brighter every time someone forgives. It would be a quiet radiance, invisible to cameras, but visible to the soul. We call it warmth. We call it peace. You think of all the forms light has taken in your life. A sunrise on the first day of love, a candle beside someone's passing, the glow of a screen holding a face far away, the flash of realization after long confusion. Each carried the same message, delivered in different dialects of energy. You are seen. You belong. And now, as the years fold inward, you begin to carry your own version of that message. You no longer chase brightness, you generate it, softly, from within. The body has become a lantern for its own awareness. When you speak gently, when you forgive quickly, when you pause before judging, you are redistributing light. The cosmos lends it to you, and you return it changed, warmer, slower, human. Afternoon arrives unnoticed. Clouds thin, revealing a quiet blue that feels endless. You sense that everything alive is synchronized to one breath. The rain evaporates, leaving circles on the pavement like traces of forgotten constellations. Children laugh nearby. Their voices scatter into the air and seem to sparkle in the sun. You smile, because in their laughter you hear the echo of the universe beginning again. The cycle continues, light awakening, darkness resting, awareness oscillating between wonder and calm. And somewhere inside that endless alternation, you find your center. Not as a fixed point, but as a rhythm, a participation in the same symmetry that moves galaxies and heartbeats alike. Evening will come, and you will not resist it. You will watch the shadows stretch across the ground and know that they are not endings, but invitations to remember. When the last light leaves the horizon, You will close your eyes and still feel brightness, steady and internal, like an ember that does not need fuel. You will understand then that being human was never about choosing between radiance and darkness, but about keeping the conversation alive between them. The night returns softly and you whisper to it the same way light once whispered to you. There is no boundary anymore, only awareness breathing in both directions. The sky exhales. You exhale. And in that shared motion you realize you were never separate from the source. You were the meeting point all along. The circle begins again. Morning light moves across the same floor, but today it feels different, softer, wiser, as if it remembers where it has been. You stand inside that glow and breathe. The air tastes like renewal. Every sound, birds, distant traffic, the low hum of power, folds into one continuous vibration. You sense that the world is not repeating itself, it is refining itself. The question that started everything returns quietly. Why does light exist before darkness learned to see? You thought you might have answered it by now, but the more you have learned, the more you feel the question breathing beside you, alive, evolving, a companion rather than a riddle. Perhaps the question was never about cause. Perhaps it was about belonging. You walk outside as the sun rises. The city glows with an almost transparent calm. People move like slow constellations, their paths crossing in small bursts of illumination. A smile at a corner, a gesture of help, a laugh shared between strangers. All these are forms of light too, travelling from one consciousness to another. Unmeasured, but precise. The physics remains the same, energy transfers, fields interact, but now you see that empathy obeys the same laws. Compassion is the gravity of awareness, drawing beings toward coherence. Every act of kindness reduces entropy for a moment, turning chaos into order, noise into meaning. The universe continues its work of self-organization through the hands and hearts of those who care. Light, it seems, has learned to think, and thought has learned to feel. You pause on a bridge. Below, the river mirrors the sky, a perfect inversion of above and below. You realize the reflection is not the opposite of reality, it is the rest of it. The surface holds both directions at once. Maybe this is how perception works too. You look outward and inward at the same time, and the line between them is fluid as water. Science calls it feedback. Philosophy calls it consciousness. Poetry calls it wonder. Each name is just a different refraction of the same event, the world recognizing itself. When you look at light on water, it is not just photons meeting the eye. It is awareness closing a circuit, completing the long journey from the Big Bang to this breath. Billions of years condensed into one heartbeat of noticing. At moments like this, time becomes gentle. It does not rush or divide. It hovers, transparent and round. You feel the presence of all that came before you. Stars collapsing, oceans forming, creatures lifting their heads toward the sun. Each act of seeing layered upon the next, a history of perception accumulating in your gaze. You are not separate from those beginnings. You are their continuation, their memory, their answer. The human eye is the oldest mirror in the universe. It reflects not only the world, but the impulse that made the world visible in the first place. Perhaps this is the truth hiding inside the paradox. Light was not waiting for darkness to see. It was waiting for itself to become capable of wonder. You look down again at the water. The wind ripples its surface, breaking the reflection into fragments. Still, each fragment contains the whole. So it is with knowing. Understanding arrives in pieces, but every piece holds the structure of the entire mystery. Certainty was never the goal. Continuity was. As long as awareness continues to ask, the universe continues to unfold. The question and the answer are the same act seen from different sides of time. You smile at the simplicity of it. Light and darkness are not beginning and end. They are conversation partners. They take turns speaking through you. You turn toward home. The day has fully arrived. Its warmth feels earned. Each step seems to echo a truth too large for words, that existence is not about arrival, but resonance. To live is to be the point where the dialogue between seeing and being briefly takes shape as a person, then dissolves back into the field it came from. And maybe that is all light ever wanted, to pass through the eyes of those who would notice, to feel itself understood, if only for a moment. The world no longer feels like something you look at. It feels like something you are inside of. Each sound, each glimmer of colour, each breath of wind arrives not as information, but as participation. The line between observer and observed dissolves quietly. You notice how your thoughts follow the same rhythm as the clouds. They form, drift, disappear. You understand now that seeing is not an act of distance, it is an exchange of presence. When a photon leaves the sun and enters your eye, it is not a one-way journey. It is a loop completing itself. Energy and attention meet halfway, and recognition occurs. In that instant, light becomes meaning. Perhaps that is what consciousness truly is, the place where physics learns empathy. You walk through a park at midday. The trees shimmer. Children run, laughing, their movements scattering brightness like water. Every leaf, every gesture seems to breathe the same invisible law. Nothing exists alone. Photosynthesis, conversation, perception, all are variations of the same transaction. Exchange is the essence of being. If light is the currency of the universe, then awareness is its circulation. Without movement, both fade. So you keep walking, and notice how the shadows cool the path. They are not interruptions of light, but part of its design. Each dark patch protects the brightness beside it. Balance is not symmetry, it is cooperation. In quantum theory, there is no strict boundary between the system and the observer. Measurement changes the outcome. Every act of noticing reshapes what is noticed. The same principle holds in human life. Attention transforms what it touches. When you look with fear, the world contracts. When you look with wonder, it expands. When you look with love, it becomes transparent. Perception is architecture. You build reality from the quality of your gaze. This is not metaphor. The body mirrors this truth exactly. When you imagine warmth, your blood vessels open. When you recall joy, dopamine lights the brain. Thought is physiology. Emotion is physics. The wall between matter and mind is a convenient illusion that keeps meaning organized. But at deeper scales, they are one process. Energy folding itself into awareness and unfolding again into form. You sit on a bench and watch sunlight move through branches. Every flicker, every shifting patch of gold feels like a silent language. The photons striking your eyes left the sun minutes ago. In that short time, they travelled 150 million kilometres just to reach this moment of stillness. They are ancient messengers arriving on schedule. You are the instrument that completes their message. Somewhere deep in the visual cortex, neurons translate their vibration into colour. But colour itself does not exist outside the mind. It is not property. It is relation. Red is how energy feels at one frequency, blue at another. The world you see is a negotiation between external signal and internal response. Reality then is not fixed. It is relational. It happens between. That word, between, holds everything. Between star and I, between self and other, between silence and sound. It is where meaning lives. You think again of the question, why does light exist before darkness learned to see? Maybe it never did. Maybe the seeing was always implicit in the shining. The potential for awareness was woven into every photon, waiting for time, for complexity, for hearts and eyes to emerge so the story could finally tell itself aloud. The question was the answer all along. Light exists because seeing is inevitable. Seeing exists because light could not bear to be alone. A breeze moves across the park. Leaves tremble. A dog barks in the distance, the sound folding softly into the hum of traffic. You feel no urgency to capture any of it. It feels captured already, not in words but in attention. In that calm, the world and the mind are indistinguishable. You are both the witness and the witnessed, both the question and the reply. Light has found its mirror, and the mirror is you. There comes a moment when the question turns back on itself. You ask, who is doing the seeing? And something within answers without words, I am the seeing. The thought lands softly, yet its weight changes everything. For so long you have stood facing the world, light out there, eyes in here, subject and object, observer and observed. But now the distinction starts to dissolve. You sense that the light you see and the awareness that sees it are not two things. They are the same current moving in opposite directions. When you close your eyes, the glow does not vanish. It turns inward. The same radiance flows behind the lids, painting dreams and memories. Even imagination uses the same frequency. The energy never stops. It only changes route. Light without eyes is potential. Eyes without light are promise. Together they form the loop called existence. The old cosmologist said, God spoke light into being. But what if light spoke God into being instead? What if divinity is the name we give to the instant matter first realized it could be seen? Awareness is not a late visitor to the universe, it is the universe remembering itself. Physics calls it feedback. Philosophy calls it reflection. Love calls it recognition. Every atom holds a trace of that original awareness, that moment of awakening still echoing in its spin. You carry it in your breath, in the pulse behind your ribs, in the curiosity that keeps you looking up at the sky, even when you think you know what's there. Curiosity itself is the evidence of light trying to see further into its own depth. You walk home under the evening sky. The horizon burns with slow gold fading to blue. Streetlights hum awake one by one. They seem to answer the stars, as if reminding each other to keep going. You realize that darkness is not absence but canvas. Without it, light would have nowhere to speak. Without silence, sound could not exist. Without death, life would have no edge to lean against. Every opposite is the reflection of its companion. Every paradox is a reunion, waiting to be recognized. Darkness learned to see by becoming what it was looking for. And light, exhausted from endless shining, found rest in that realization. You are the meeting point of their relief. Inside you, the brain hums with low electricity. Tiny flashes leap between neurons, a galaxy condensed into a handful of seconds. You are not thinking about the universe, you are enacting it. Each thought is a local Big Bang, each emotion a miniature collapse. Every heartbeat expands and contracts with the same rhythm as space-time itself. The body is not in the cosmos. The cosmos is occurring as the body. You are the field, experiencing itself as a person. The paradox peaks here, but it no longer feels like conflict. It feels like resolution disguised as mystery. You stand in your room as night gathers. The lamp on your desk flickers once, then steadies. The shadows it casts move gently across the walls. You realize there is no center, because every point is center. There is no direction, because every photon travels both outward and inward at once. You whisper, What is seeing what? And the silence replies, only seeing, only being. For a long while you stay like that, not understanding but not needing to. Outside, the stars appear again. Their light left home millions of years ago, yet it arrives precisely when you are ready to notice it. Time is not linear, it is responsive. The cosmos speaks in synchronization, waiting for awareness to complete each sentence. Somewhere, a distant galaxy watches you back. Not metaphorically, its light literally enters your body, its energy absorbed into your skin. You are composed of the same particles trading places through endless cycles of recognition. Observation is communion. Existence is correspondence. When light finally understands itself, it becomes love. Not the emotion, but the quiet fact of connection. The refusal to remain separate. Love is the simplest equilibrium, the speed of light slowed down until it can hold someone. And in that holding, darkness smiles. It has completed its education. The question returns, lighter now. Why does light exist before darkness learned to see? You answer softly, because they were never apart, because seeing was the first form of being, because the universe wanted to feel what it already knew. Night again. The world exhales. You sit by the window and feel the quiet pulse of the earth beneath you. It is the same rhythm that once moved through stars, the same rhythm that shaped time. Light has travelled its long arc and returned home as understanding. Darkness has unlearned its fear and become rest. Between them, you breathe. You think of everything you have followed: photons, eyes, thoughts, emotions, galaxies. All of them were different faces of one movement, one gesture, repeating through every scale of existence, the impulse to know. That impulse built atoms, then life, then awareness. It became language, then silence again. Even now, silence does not mean absence. It is the final form of comprehension, the moment after the answer, when no question remains. The air outside is cool. Clouds drift across a half-moon, silver and slow. Somewhere a train passes in the distance, its low sound stretching through the night like a line of memory. Everything is connected by rhythm. Every distance hums with relation. You close your eyes. Images rise and fade. Faces, places, the curve of a horizon. Moments that once seemed random, now aligning in quiet pattern. It feels as though the universe has been composing you all along. You were never separate notes. You were melody. And every other life is part of the same composition. Every awareness adds another instrument. The symphony has no conductor, only coherence. Science might call it equilibrium. Faith might call it grace. Poetry calls it home. Whatever the name, you can feel it settling in the body. No urgency, no argument, only the steady warmth of belonging. For a long time you thought light was the goal, to understand, to illuminate, to prove. Now you see it was only half the journey. The other half was learning to rest in darkness without fear. To let the unseeable remain sacred. To allow mystery to be a kind of clarity. Knowing and not knowing complete each other. Like inhale and exhale, their balance keeps awareness alive. You step outside. The world is soaked in moonlight. Even the shadows gleam faintly, each leaf outlined by silver. The air carries the scent of rain and electricity. You can almost feel the weight of photons landing on your skin, their touch so light it feels like thought. Somewhere a fox moves through grass. The star explodes in a distant galaxy. A heartbeat echoes both events at once. Nothing is truly far. Light erases distance. Awareness erases separation. In this quiet convergence, you sense what the question has always been asking. Why does light exist before darkness learned to see? Because the universe wanted to learn compassion. Because seeing required difference, and difference required love. Because perception itself is the meeting of opposites that have finally stopped competing. You stand there, letting the cool wind cross your face. The sky above you looks endless, but you know it is curved, folding inward like a gentle mirror. You whisper something you cannot fully name. The words vanish into air, yet their meaning remains, a resonance between you and everything. This is not transcendence. It is recognition. The cosmos does not speak through thunder. It speaks through your calm, through your quiet acceptance that to exist is enough, to see is enough, to be aware is to fulfill the first intention of light. You return indoors. The lamp glows softly on the table. Its light is warm, human, finite. You switch it off. Darkness fills the room easily, without threat. And there, in the absence of brightness, you still feel the glow, not in the eyes, but in the mind, not as vision, but as understanding. The circle closes gently. Light and darkness are one motion. Seeing and being seen are one act. You are the bridge, the brief intersection where infinity met form. And even as the world sleeps, the conversation continues. Silent, steady, eternal. Light resting inside darkness. Darkness dreaming itself awake.